Welcome back to the Human Code Key. This is part 2, and this will be some of my credentials. So this one's going to be real short. In fact, if you don't want to hear about it, you want to just get right to the next tool, you can skip right ahead because this could be boring, and I acknowledge that. But some people need to know the credentials and the training of an individual to take them seriously. So for those people, that's why this is here. And I'm not going to put any tools, but you might learn, there might be a story or something I tell that might have some deeper meaning. However, I'm telling you right now, you can skip ahead. But basically, my track record in the second grade, I was identified as a talented and gifted student, and really it goes back to my first day of kindergarten. But that is a good story, and I'm going to tell that on the next episode. So we're going to start this one at the second grade. I was identified as a talented and gifted student, and I was put into the hardest classes, and was always part of maybe 5 to 12 kids every year, and we just did things that were just extra hard and extra challenging. And once a year, we would go to a statewide competition and have to solve some kind of problem. They gave us the problem, then we'd solve it, and then we'd go to usually we did well, so we went to the state, and then sometimes we made it to the finalists, and this is called Olympics of the Mind, or Odyssey of the Mind. It was first called Olympics for the Mind, then they changed it for Odyssey of the Mind. And it's probably evolved into something these days, but usually schools have these. But I was always in those hard classes. And in those hard classes, there were your peer group, and it was always a fun challenge to be the one to solve the problem that no one could solve. So I loved solving whatever couldn't be solved, because then I got the bragging rights. And as kind of a nerdy kid, I have had to learn to outsmart myself out of situations. So anyways, I gravitated to this, and my parents, being immigrants, once they found out that, I was one of the smart kids, they really shoved me into every program that was possible. In fact, growing up, now I'm appreciative of it, but back when I was a kid, I hated all the extra things that my parents made me learn. Both my mother and my father. Because, my mother would do more of the diligence to get me in the programs. And then my father would be like, yep, you got to do it. But if it wasn't for them, I would not have done a lot of it. I was definitely shoved in. However, what that did for my nervous system is it allowed me to keep assimilating information, the hardest stuff that no one understands, assimilate the information, make sense of it. So by the time I graduated from high school, trigonometry, calculus, geometry, algebra 3, I was already doing that. Then I went on to engineering school, and I studied engineering. While I was in high school, I studied at Western Maryland College, part of a special, it was like math camp that I got accepted to, and met a beautiful woman who was, she's gone on to be an astrophysicist. And anyways, this one time at math camp, this one time at band camp, well, for me, it was math camp. This one time at math camp. But math is fascinating to me, and math will set you free. So I later got into a program at the United States Naval Academy that identified smart kids that wanted to have a Navy career. And I have a friend who graduated from the Naval Academy, and he said, tell them you want to be an engineer on a nuclear submarine, and you're in like Flynn. So I told him I wanted to be an engineer on a nuclear submarine, like my dad. My dad's a mechanical engineer. So I studied at the United States Naval Academy for 3 consecutive years, and I was accepted into the Naval Academy. I passed all their tests and examinations, except for one, the vision test. But I passed their regular physical, but my vision wasn't good enough. So instead of going to the United States Naval Academy, and I was part of a special program, I studied for 3 years while I was in high school. So I was already, one of the best educations I received was at the United States Naval Academy to this day. We did chemistry, mathematics, biology, forensics, geology, astronomy, physics, quantum physics, classical physics, and quantum physics, and they're both true. So then I went to Oxford University. I got a scholarship to Oxford to study acting, and then I graduated with a BFA in acting from Howard University, a very predominant school on the East Coast. And while I was in high school, again, I was part of a program that I had to apply for and write an essay where you studied ecosystems along the Chesapeake Bay. So it was me and probably maybe like 60 other kids. And we would go up and down on these boats with teachers, and we would do tests on algae and dissolved oxygen content of water, and study the sediments and the marshes and the detritus, and figuring out what the pollutions and the fertilizers are doing to the land and all that kind of stuff. I did that for 2 years. Really hated. I was like, Mom, and it was during the summer, so I was like, I don't want to do this. And then when I went, it was a bunch of, kids, and we were always in our bathing suits on the Chesapeake Bay. It was the best camp ever, Chesapeake Bay Camp, studying estuaries along the Chesapeake Bay, part of the Anne Arundel County school system. So I have a unique perspective of just having math, science, biology, philosophy. I was a philosophy major at one point. I was an engineering major for several semesters. So I have this, but basically because my nervous system got used to education from age really 2, actually it goes back to kindergarten, but again, we're going to save that for the next volume. I can't stop learning new things. So once I graduated from college with a BFA in acting, and I minored in directing, and now I work as a film and television actor in Los Angeles, and I also do stunt driving, and I do a few other things. But my passion is acting and stunt driving. So I met somebody who had an incredible gift and insight into life. And I asked him, what are you doing? And it turns out he's a life coach, and he was actually a master practitioner of NLP, which I didn't know anything about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. It's the language of our mind. It's what Gandhi and Martin Luther King speak. They were able to change the course of history by painting pictures in the minds of men and women through words. And we NLP ourselves every day. Some people say, I don't know, man. I say, no, you control the flow. If I'm by myself, I'll say, I control the flow. I control the flow. We control the flow. And you can use that as a substitution for when you were going to say what I said earlier. I'm not even going to repeat it again, because why give power to that? Wrapping up, I was introduced to someone who teaches NLP, Christopher Howard, great man, and I trained with him one-on-one. I signed up for his NLP practitioner course, which was, I think, 4 weeks, every day for 4 weeks, and graduated from that. Went on, I started helping people quit drugs and do other amazing things in their life just by talking to them. And I started telling Chris about this. He said, Ken, open up a practice. So I started Causes Greater Than Effect, and I take people on the effect side of life and I make them the cause. Because we're the cause in everything in our life. And that can be confronting. Like, why did I make it so someone would break into my car? I talked about that on the last episode. Well, it turns out I turned it into something good. So who knows? I got sloppy. But I was the cause in that. And I see how I was the cause by leaving items in the car that were appealing to criminals, boom, I'm the cause. But if now I can cause some, hey, how did I get the part in that TV show? How did I book my own pilot? How did I get a job stunt driving? Which is kind of a new thing for me to, I've been drifting cars since I was a little kid, but being a stunt driver and getting paid for it, it's just, I feel like it's such a fun job. A lot of the stuff is utilization and whatever else I was talking about. I thought about stunt driving. I just got so excited. I lost my my train of thought. But basically, I keep learning. But I became a life coach because I just started helping people. So I'm actually a certified life coach. I'm a certified Ericksonian hypnotist, and I'm a certified master practitioner of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm certified in something called creation technologies, which is Christopher Howard's own special branch of NLP, where he really teaches you to be the cause in your life and create everything around you. You learn to be the creator of stuff in your life. So those are some of my credentials. I've done other things. I've been personally mentored by many awesome coaches like Mark Victor Hansen, John Maxwell, Amir Zogi, T. Harvecker. There's more of them. Robert Kiyosaki. But and all of these people like a one-on-one. And I could say some other names as well. Some of those names will cause controversy. And I'm here to be of service to everyone, so I don't want to get us off topic. But yeah, those are some of my credentials if you need to hear it. And I've also recently taken an IQ test, and according to the IQ test, I am a genius. I've been actually called a genius since I was very, very little. I'm actually used to it. But when you're a genius, I really believe that we're all geniuses. And through life, you just learn not to do it anymore. But you are a genius. You know, how many people have had an idea where you're like, wow, I could make a lot of money with this idea. You don't do anything. A few years later, you see someone else and they have a, multi-million or multi-billion-dollar empire with your idea. We all have that, but maybe someone said, oh, you'll never be successful, or you're stupid, or something. You got labeled as something and you started believing it. And that's all it is. It's the label. So if you take the label off and relabel yourself, you can get there. For me, my genius started with Highlights magazine, the little magazine for kids. They had those things called hidden pictures. I always had to find the hidden picture. All of them. Didn't matter how long it took. I had to find them. And if I couldn't find them, I would finally go to my mom or my dad. And it turns out my mom wasn't that good at it. My dad, he's a wizard at finding the hidden pictures. And every now and then I couldn't find them. And I even got to the point where I would write the magazine. I would need help writing the letter. And then they would be like, yeah, that was a typo. There wasn't a cabbage hidden in that picture or something. But always investigating. And so, somewhere along the lines, a lot of people just give up with that kind of fun stuff. But you shouldn't, because you're a genius and all the information will help you. The more information you have will always help. And the easiest way to make that pill easy to swallow is if you got all the information, you're not going to get ripped off. I hardly ever get ripped off because I have all the information, or I've studied so much on everything that I can get my hands on. My passion is quantum physics. But my nervous system was told at an early age, you're smart. Like I would be, when they would talk about the smartest kids in the class, sometimes they would say Kenny. And I never wanted the responsibility. I was just like, that's too much. I want to be the rebel, but I got used to being called a genius from a very early age. All my close friends have called me a genius at one time or another. Some of them more than often. One of my friends even talks about my inventions, and he says Ken Bahn inventions. He's like, man, you have so many Ken Bahn inventions. You should make money on them. But I don't always share all my inventions. But anyways, my friend started making some inventions, and he's like, you should come over and see these Ken Bahn inventions that I made. Because he saw mine, and he's like, I'm going to invent some stuff too, because that looks like fun. And lots of people are inventing things. And I said, and he's telling me over the phone, and I said, how can something be a Ken Bahn invention if you invented it? That's your name invention. And I just thought that was funny that somebody else would invent something and say it's a Ken Bahn invention. But I guess they were being nice and attributing me to showing them that, hey, if you think of something, you could just make it happen. So, okay, those are some credentials. I guess there was a nugget or two of information. And if you like me, you probably enjoyed it. And if you don't like me, it's okay. I told you to skip to the next video.